Hello, ladies and gents. Romie Mojo here. Please like, comment, subscribe. Now, Parasite. I watched the movie this weekend. This was one of those rare movies that I wanted. If it wasn't for the fact that it was rented and other stuff to do, I will have watched it over and over and over and over and over again. This is one of those cases where you need to believe the hype because this movie, the reason why this movie is so good, I'm going to focus on a couple of points. There will be spoilers in here. So if that's not what you were looking for, there are spoilers in here. I'm just warning you now. There are spoilers in here. First thing, when we have this family, at first, I thought that the movie was going to be sad. I thought it was going to be about this struggling South Korean family that was poor and they were just trying to make a way for themselves, and they're working for this rich family and they're being mistreated. I thought that that's what the whole premise of the movie was going to be about. Boy, was I wrong. When I tell you that this movie, the family was scammers. They were scammers, and I said, oh, now wait a minute. Because it starts off with them at home and they're just trying to use the public, well, I shouldn't say the public Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi that doesn't belong to them. So the father, we'll call him Mr. Kim. Mr. Kim is telling his kids, hey, go into the bathroom, because in the bathroom there is a Wi-Fi signal from one of the other neighbors around them, whether it was a business or just one of their neighbors that could actually afford Wi-Fi. They had that. They also had a stink bug problem. And I said, oh, I've seen that bug before. It is gross. It looks like a grasshopper and ugh. But they actually had the pesticide truck coming around. And because they couldn't afford to actually, because they lived underground, they couldn't actually afford to pay for an exterminator. The father was like, no, don't close the window. Let the air come in to kill the bugs. Like, they are in a real try or die situation right now. Both parents did not have a job, so it was very serious. They were actually stacking up and doing pizza boxes because you get paid based on how many boxes you're able to do correctly. There was a certain percentage that was done incorrectly, and because of that, they were going to get docked 10% of the pay that they were supposed to get. And then they weren't going to get anything. So the kids stepped in, they got their money, they were able to eat. There's this guy named Min, and he was we'll call him Kevin. Kevin is the son of the Kim family. So Min is going to university. He wants his friend to go, and because he trusts his friend, to go and tutor this girl who needs help with her English. And he'll vouch the mother is a little airheaded, very trusting, very naive. So she'll accept him and hire him. But Min wanted his friend to watch out for his girl because he grew close to her and he wants to ask her out officially once she graduated and would move on to university. Now, Kevin family was able to forge the documentation. He's working for the what was their name? The Park family. It's all coming to me. The Park family. And because the mother is so ditzy, but you have to watch out for the maid, because the maid, she acted like she ran the place. It was very clear. It was very obvious. You had this younger child who was just running around doing whatever he wanted, because the father, later on we hear, the father is one of those where he's like, he'll let his wife go and handle that. That's not his responsibility. And you could tell in that relationship, and especially in a lot of societies where misogyny and male privilege is prevalent, you could tell that that was a family dynamic, more traditional family dynamic, where probably if she really tried to be more stern with the son, that she would have issues with her husband. Kevin came in there and quickly put the moves on old girl that he was tutoring. And so now she likes him. And now he sees an opportunity to bring in someone to go and help with the child. So that's how he gets his sister in. They pretend that that's not his sister. Her name is Jessica. And Jessica is coming into, wow, it's all coming back to me. Jessica is coming in to go and be a, what was it, art psychologist, therapist. That child just needs someone to give him structure. And Jessica is no nonsense. You get her personality early on. So you can tell that she came in there and within 5 minutes got that child under control. Like, really, that's all it took. Stern. Not mean, not abusive, stern. A lot of people need to learn from that. And you just see how their families operated so differently. Like how in her family, her mother is very strong. And her father is actually the one that, to a certain degree, was kind of taking the back seat. So once Jessica gets in there and takes control, then they see that, oh, there's this driver that drove them. And it made me a little nervous because, first of all, Jessica, I believe she came from, their story was that she graduated from Illinois, so America. They really saw America highly, the rich family, the Parks, very highly. Like even later on when they talked about a tent that came from America, so it's good quality, it'll last in the rainstorm. Sidebar, why would you have your young child with his electronics out in a thunderstorm? But I guess we're not going to talk about that because they're idiots. Did anyone even check to see if the weather would have been good so that they could have gone camping? It's just stupidity. It's a lack of common sense. A lack of common sense. Anyway, they get Jessica was able to pull a fast one. She left her underwear inside of the car when she was being driven back to the train station because she didn't want them to know where she lived because that would have ruined everything. And then the father, Mr. Park, realized, why is a lady's underwear? Oh, it must be the driver's. So they fired the driver. Now we have their father, who was a driver at one point, comes in and they went to the Mercedes-Benz dealership. They saw the exact miles, so he knew how to drive the car. And now he's the driver. Now he's Mr. Kim. But we're not done yet because we need to get mom in too. So then they were able to get the maid fired because the youngest daughter of the Kim family, put it out there that the maid is allergic to peaches. I'm thinking, why would she even go and say that? But then part of me was like, oh, did I miss her saying that she likes peaches and we can't even have peaches because the maid is allergic to peaches? Maybe it was something like that. So then the Mrs. Park is so ditzy, so dumb, she actually believed it when she was told that from Mr. Kim that, oh, I was on the phone and I took a picture at my regular checkup. Don't worry, everything was clear. And the maid was there. And I overheard her talking to someone saying that she had tuberculosis. And she was trying to hide it. And of course, Mrs. Park's like, what? So then they go and stage this allergy attack to make it seem like it's tuberculosis, and even use ketchup to show blood, pretend that it was blood. So now the maid gets fired, and now they magically have this service. Mr. Kim, he showed, and again, they're all about quality. So he gave Mr. Park a card. The card was good material. So Mr. Park felt like, okay, yes, this is a trustworthy brand. And they're all about, oh, well, if you recommend it and I trust you and I know you, then it must be good. Then it must be. It's like the stupidity of it all. This is not how the real world. This is how some people in the real world operate, especially people with money. They don't want to waste time. And it's all about trust. It's all about not having to deal with the learning curve to get you up to speed. So they go and ignore all of the red flags that they would normally do. And it's insane. It's insane. It's insane because now you have the entire Kim family working in the household. And I thought the mom's going to blow it because the mom seemed like, oh, I have to actually do all of this work? Really? Really? She did not seem happy about that. And I knew things were going a little too well. Things were going a little too well. It was going okay up until we got to the camping experience. So the parks, they went out to camp. They went to camp, and now the Kim family is treating the house like their own. Jessica is upstairs taking a bubble bath. They're drinking the expensive water. They're eating all the snacks. They're drinking the alcohol as if no one would have eventually noticed. But again, maybe they wouldn't because they were just that ditzy of a family. Ding dong. Here comes the maid who was fired. And she looked like she's been through it. She looked like she was beat up. She looked a mess. She looked erratic. I said, don't let her in. Everything will be ruined. Guess what? Felt bad for her because like we're both working class and I just need a break. Let her in. Let her in downstairs. Let her in downstairs by herself. We find out that homegirl has her husband hiding out in the secret bunker underneath the basement because apparently in the past, a lot of predominant South Korean people created these safety bunkers just in case North Korea attacked or to hide out from creditors because that is huge. It's huge everywhere, but it's really huge in different Asian countries where creditors, they don't play. Here, they'll call, they'll send emails, they'll send letters, try to put the pressure on you. Maybe go and talk to the credit agency, maybe call your job. Like it gets really frustrating and really draining. And if you go loan sharks, then then your physical health is in danger. Your life is in danger. There, it's more prominent and more common and 10 times more dangerous. I did hear about that. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, so I get it. So she hid out her husband because I think he had a gambling problem, which is also very, very common. Had a gambling problem. Hid him out down there. You could tell that something was off with him. He was down there for so long. Homeboy was acting as the automatic sensor for the lights. So when the Park family came home, the lights would always come on because he would be the one to turn it on. And he was actually delivering Morse code to the youngest child, to the son. Not only that, one time he came up from downstairs when the son was 1 year old. Well, he snuck downstairs himself to go and eat his cake and scared the living daylights out of this child. The child had a seizure. So that was very serious. But the whole point is that he's been there for a long time, hiding out, because she was apparently there before these new people came in. So they've been doing this for years. For years. And then it became this whole thing of she asked for help. She was like, please just allow him to stay here. And this family got complacent. The whole concept of parasites. They don't want someone there who one could potentially, the mother didn't want someone there that could potentially ruin things or, take from them. Or she wanted to call the cops. Her family was listening. They slipped and fell. And so now the original maid had leverage. She took out her phone and she was videoing them. And so then now her husband and her were living their best life upstairs while the family was in the corner, terrified because they didn't know when or if these people would go and out them to the Park family. Eventually they realized there's power in numbers. So then a fight commenced. And it was a mess. They were able to tie up the husband, and they knocked out. Mrs. Kim knocked out the old maid, and once I knew she fell down the stairs and hit her head, I knew she was going to die, and I knew that would set the husband off. I knew it. So now we get this this is crazy. It is crazy because the greed of it all, the complacency of it all. Now we have to worry about them being downstairs. What are we going to do about that? And then guess what? The Park family came home early because the weather was a mess. And I didn't even put two and two together at the time that, oh, their camping would be ruined, so they would have to come back sooner. It's just. So now Miss Park has to cook because they want some food. The youngest son wants some food, wants some udon. Oh, she didn't know how to make that. Oh. So she was doing that while the rest of her family was trying to clean up, but they made such a mess while trying to make sure that they fix it downstairs. So Mr. Kim actually stayed downstairs for a little bit to try and just make sure everything stayed orderly, while the family, who was so distracted, they came in. Mind you, at one point, Kevin was reading his soon-to-be girlfriend's diary, and so he had to go and put that back. His sister Jessica gave him the diary, had to go and put that back. So he was underneath her bed. So when she comes in, her dog is, not barking, but just looking at him underneath the bed. And thankfully, there's so much going on downstairs that she couldn't focus on what the dog was looking at. So he was safe. Now, his sister and Mr. Kim, so Jessica, Mr. Kim, they were underneath, at one point, underneath the table. And mind you, there's this beautiful view of the backyard because it's all glass. This part of the house is this house was gorgeous. They are rich. Rich. Because as we know, Mr. Park, he's the CEO of this tech company. So enough said at that point. And I did not expect this. Again, the stupidity. They had their son who wanted to camp out in his tent in a thunderstorm because they can't control him. Mr. and Mrs. Park were fondling and fooling around in the living room for Mr. Kim and his family to hear and be disgusted by. It was just so cringeworthy because, and then they were like, oh yeah, and do you still have the poor girl's panties? Put it on, do something sexual. I want to, screw you with those on and then take them. I said, what? I looked at her like, huh? Miss Prim and Proper? You? Really? Oh, so that's how this relationship works. That's why it works. Because you're his little naughty girl. You're his trophy wife in public and his freak in private and at night. I'm not mad at you. I was just a little shocked. Anyway, so they did that. She was fondling him. He was groping her. She was groping him. They were having a nice time. Sidebar, when the daughter was texting Kevin and Kevin had to put his phone on vibrate, so his mom coughed when the phone vibrated. I was like, oh my gosh, there's too much in the movie for it to be. And then, so then eventually, when they were able to get out of the house and it was still pouring, because people kept telling me about the rain scene, and I knew that there was flooding. But I felt bad because remember, they lived where the draining system worked properly. So this kind of reminded me of Katrina. I said, oh my gosh, where they live, there's no proper draining system. So when it rains like that, it floods. And when I tell you, everyone was just trying to go and get their families and the little possessions that had real value out. Forget the regular clothes. Forget everything else. They were just trying to get the bare minimum out. The bare minimum. I said, oh, this is a powerful scene. The sewage was so backed up that the that's a toilet, which was already raised up because they were underground. So, however, the plumbing had to be designed. Poop, crap, dirt, everything you can imagine was coming out of that toilet. So Jessica had to sit on the toilet to keep it from coming out. I said, oh my gosh. Everything was flooded. They were getting electrocuted because it was like live wires and their electrical stuff wasn't insulated. Oh, I felt bad. So that was Mr. Kim, Jessica, and Kevin having to deal with that. Because remember, the mother was still acting as a maid at the house. That scene. And so Kevin, he got the rock that was supposed to bring his family good fortune. And he was just holding on to it for dear life. I guess just trying to see, hey, something good has to come out of this. So then the next day, when they wake up at the shelter, they get calls. They get calls because they still have to, sidebar. It was interesting seeing each time the different plans that they had in place as they started to make money and generate income and realize, oh, we can actually get a good life if we work for them long enough. But so I wanted to throw that in there. But notice how it wasn't really a question, even from the daughter who liked Kevin. It was all essentially, you're coming. You're going to come here. You're going to come to this birthday party. Jessica, you're going to help us. Mr. Kim, we need you there. And they had to figure it out. I don't know where they got the. I guess they went and bartered for new clothes, did whatever they needed to do to get there. Sidebar. I did not forget about when Mr. Park was talking about the smell. He said Mr. Kim has a certain smell to him. Because if you remember, the son even smelled Mr. Kim, Mrs. Kim, and even said Jessica, they all have the same smell. But this family is so naive that they're just like, oh, whatever, he's just a twerp. Don't pay attention to him. But he was right. He was right. Mr. Park talking about how Mr. Kim has a smell to him. He's like, Mr. Kim, how he talks and acts, it always seems like he's about to cross the line, but he doesn't. And I like that. Essentially saying that he knows his place. That was his politically correct way of saying that Mr. Kim knows his place, except for his smell. And it's not just that he smells bad, but it's kind of like a weird odor, almost like if you're on the subway. Essentially saying that he smells like working class who is around the undesirables. Around the undesirables, and Mr. Kim had to hold all the pride within him to calm down. So that's why he was not in a great mood when he was at that stupid birthday party and he had to play dress up and pretend to be an Indian. I said, oh, this isn't even politically correct. Dress up as a Native American and do that. He was not happy. But Mr. Park saw that and said, remember, you're getting paid. Essentially, you're getting paid to do this, so I'm also paying you to be happy. Be happy. Be happy. I don't care about how you really feel. Be happy. Everyone got invited to this party, and I'm thinking, okay, so where are we going from here? Where are we going from here? Keep in mind, Kevin was there, but he had a guilty conscience. Now, this is the part that confused me. The part that really confused me when Kevin went downstairs to the party, not thinking, with his rock. I don't know if he was there to finish off the job. I don't know if he was there to give it to them to kind of say, I hope this brings you. That's the part that I was confused by. Let me know what you thought about that. But like an idiot, he went down there, and guess who was free? The maid's husband. The gambler was free, and so he put a zip tie around Kevin's neck and was yoking him around for a moment. But remember, he's been down there for so long that he's not at his best physically. but Kevin is. Kevin's been eating well. He's been treated very well recently. And so Kevin was able to fight back, even though he's still a little dumb, because the zip tie, instead of holding on to the cord, again, I know a lot was going on, but he's supposed to be smart. So I'm sure Jessica wouldn't even went down there. Jessica wanted to take care of the rest of the. She wanted to go down there and take care of the rest. Jessica's my favorite, and I'm upset what happened. Anyway, Kevin, he gets knocked out, and then Gambler takes Kevin's rock and hits him with it. I said, "Oh, so he's dead." But it looks so weird. I thought to myself, the rock's supposed to bring fortune and prosperity, so maybe not. Jessica was holding the cake. They were supposed to do this little thing where they pretend to go and attack Jessica and all this stuff. But what turns up instead, and again, everyone is in their own rich world, not paying attention, that when the gambler comes out and with blood on his face, no one notices initially until he runs towards, and he was able to stab Jessica. He was able to attack Mrs. Kim, and it was just a mess. A mess. Mrs. Kim was able to stab him. I believe that was her that was able to stab him in the side. He did die. And while everyone is running away, this is where you see how the heartless and selfishness, the fight or flight, kicked in for everyone. How because the young child, Mr. Park's son, saw his ghost, he started to have a seizure. And you only have 15 minutes before it's like permanent brain damage for a child. And so they have 15 minutes to get him to the emergency room. And here goes Mr. Park, instead of saying, "Hey, grab Jessica, put her in the back seat, let's take her and my son to the emergency room," he was just fully concerned about his son, understandably, but still, the lack of compassion and general understanding, because she was stabbed. But from what we saw, it looked like she could have survived, from what we initially thought. And so then, eventually, Mr. Kim threw the keys towards Mr. Park because he was like, "Okay, just give me the keys. Just give me the keys." The keys landed right by the gambler. So then here goes Mr. Park pinching his nose as he gets the keys from this dirty man. And that set Mr. Kim off. Mr. Kim took the knife and stabbed and killed Mr. Park, because he already knew that Mr. Park was an elitist, thought very little of Mr. Kim and the working class, no matter how much he acted in front of him. And so it was like, "You have a disregard for my family, for my wife who was cut, for my daughter who was stabbed? I don't even know where my son is." Sidebar, I cackled when the son was being carried away by his girlfriend. I said, "Now how the hell is she?" Like, I know he was skinny, thin, we'll say thin. I know he was thin, but her being able to run and carry this dude on her back. So she saved him. Initially, she saved him. Her family probably paid for the brain surgery because, his family didn't have the money. It was that part confused me. Like, once Mr. Kim ran off after stabbing Mr. Park, we were all wondering where he went. But it was very confusing how the son got charged. I'm thinking, huh? But the son was delirious. He kept laughing the entire time. He kept laughing and laughing, or at least smiling. Even at his sister died. Jessica died somehow. Like, I know she got stabbed, but maybe it was because she didn't get to the hospital in time. Maybe it was internal bleeding. But we all thought that initially she could have been saved. But no, she died. And there were agents. I think Kevin just got probation for the most part. But the main thing was there were Asians tailing them for a while, but then that stopped. Uh, the Park family did move, and a new family came in, and we found out, wait a minute, what is that blinking going on? What is that blinking? Because Kevin, he was doing some soul searching. He was walking around, and he came to the hill where the Park family's house was, and he saw the blinking. He knew Morse code because he also did Cub Scouts, and he realized his father was living in the basement. His father gave a proper burial for the maid, and he's just going to live there until Kev. The whole plan was, we saw this flash forward of Kevin. He didn't marry. He didn't do all this other stuff. What he wanted to do first was make a lot of money so that he could buy the house, own the house, and so that his father can come out. It was confusing because Kevin didn't look that much older. His mom didn't look that much older. His father still looked the same age, which had me thinking, that was just in his head from what he envisioned for his life versus what actually happened. But this movie, talking about the classism, talking about even general stereotypes, sexism, talking about the social issues of also gambling and loan sharks and just people in the service industry and how they're mistreated and looked at as less than, almost like a subpar level of the working class, and about how, the poor pretty much will stay poor unless something drastically changes. And this family became parasites because they saw a better way out and they tried to take it, but it didn't work out. So that was it. The movie was over 2 hours long, but it was so good. And twists and turns about the person being downstairs, and then it was just, it kept you. Once the Kim family came in, it really kept you. And yes, there are subtitles, but after a while, I'm used to reading subtitles because I watch a lot of anime stuff, but after a while, you just focus and it just feels normal. But yeah, well deserved. This movie, well deserved. I saw a bunch of the Oscar nominated movies, and I can say this one deserved all of the awards that it got. All of the awards that it got. So that's it. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. This movie was a mess. Both families were a mess. They were complete opposites, and I loved it. I'm going to watch it again. Shoot.